This is All India Radio. Whispers of the Wind. All India Radio, in collaboration with Vigyan-Prasar, presents science serial Whispers of the Wind, based on understanding and managing climate change and global warming. Episode number 51, recap of all episodes.
Good evening, listeners, and welcome to the 51st and the penultimate episode of your favorite science serial, Whispers of the Wind. With me in the studio, Dr. Vigyan-Prasar and Dr. B.K. Tyagi. Welcome to the studio on this very special occasion. My first question to you, Dr. Parashar, we'd like to begin with your reflections on this entire year, almost a year-long journey.
It is indeed a very poignant moment at this point in time where we all come to the end of this serial, Whispers of the Wind. The moment when I first came in and heard about this, I was excited. The name itself said all about what we were trying to talk about. And throughout the serial, throughout this journey, whenever I was here, whenever I interacted with a number of people, with a number of experts, all that I could do was to add to my knowledge, add to my understanding of what people's perception is about the Whispers of the Wind. We had people writing to us from all walks and corners of the country. We had questions. Every question is a good question. And we learned a lot from them. And I guess our listeners also learned a lot from them.
Dr. Tyagi, your thoughts on this one-year journey?
Okay, there are two aspects to that. One is the content part, which we have tried to communicate with our listeners. And second was the outcome. So when we were planning this serial, I think we had a very long discussion with the major stakeholders, in which we have the climatologist, the scientist, the hardcore researchers and the field worker. It's a vast subject because climate, you can say, a result of so many factors. And climate is not the same, it's keep on changing. And suddenly what are the factors which has within last few decades, since 1950, we will found there is a change in the climate of the globe. What has contributed to that factor? No doubt climate change is a natural process, but we see. And now, what are the visible impact which we are seeing around us? Those we also try to correlate with the factor which are responsible for that. And also the discussion or the input by the subject expert in the studio. That was a wonderful experience. And it was around 48, 49 episodes, which were the scripted episodes. They were divided into almost 5 segments. 5 segments, understanding the science of climate change. That was the first segment, where we tried to understand what constitute the climate of a place and how and what are the physical factors which make us, when we say the climate is very pleasant or very bad, like that thing. And then the major factor responsible for climate and the climate change. And the third was because now climate change is a reality, there is so much of literature, research literature, which is available us and which is pointing us that the climate is changing. As a result, there is a global warming. And also the fourth was the visible impact, what we actually now emerging, which we have seen, in the form of extreme weather phenomena, where the certain crops, we are finding that the produce is reducing, is already proven thing. And what are the other harmful impact of climate change? Because you can link the emergence of new disease pattern, new viruses, new bacteria, and for which we have no vaccine. So if
the current onslaught is an example.
Yeah, if we can attribute it towards climate change and global warming, I think then imagine the magnitude of the problem. It is affecting the entire globe, and for which we are not ready in terms of the vaccine or the health administration and all that. And no doubt, we are putting our best effort, but and also the awareness of the people.
True.
So
Very
this was the, in terms of harmful impact, which brought us, causing us a great economic loss in terms of whether agriculture, health, or the quality of life in terms of the extreme weather phenomena. So this was the overall pattern in which we can say we have 7 segments, and each segment has a specific episode, and all the episodes were in a docudrama format, which start with a real life situation, and then we try to reach to some conclusion in the form of giving do's and don't, or in what way we can contribute to the whole scenario in terms of reducing the impact of this climate change.
Plus, I remember in the first episode, Associate Professor, Center for Atmospheric Sciences, IIT Delhi, Dr. Somnath Baidyaraj.
Yeah, this winter has been remarkable. I mean, this winter in the northern India, to the best of my knowledge, is the wettest winter that we have had so far. And then suddenly, in the span of I think, I will tell you this, the day I put away my room heater, that was the day I turned my fan on. And this kind of a drastic transition has not happened. And you are right that we are dressed, some of us are dressed for the winter and some of us are dressed for the summer. And all we see that there is no sign of spring. So this is, we still don't know. This year it's a neutral and some of us have heard about El Nino, which is a global phenomenon, weather phenomenon. So this year is a neutral El Nino year, so that probably has some impact on this kind of wetness. I think a good sign could be normal to above normal monsoons. So I personally, I would not call it like a prolongation of the winter, because I mean the reason we are feeling cold is all these storms that are coming. So all of these rainfall that happens in India beyond the purview of the monsoon, these are because of a particular phenomenon called western disturbances. They go through, enter through Pakistan, and then they go across Bangladesh into Assam, and typically the environment is very dry here, so we don't get any rain. And it's only maybe when it reaches West Bengal, then it picks up some moisture from the Bay of Bengal and rains out. But this typically happens in what in Bengal it's called Kal Boishakhi, means in the month of Baisakh, that is in mid-April, which is almost few weeks away from now, almost 3 weeks away. But it's very strange that we are getting Kal Baisakhi in February in northern India. So clearly a lot of these kinds of things have changed. This is obviously a very anomalous year. It is not because of the temperature per se, but because of where is all this energy coming from suddenly in the environment, that what used to be a almost imperceptible storm, now it is creating, producing so much rain to the extent that depressing or reducing temperatures and a cold weather that persists for several days. So I am as baffled as you are, but it could be signs of ominous signs of things to come.
Dr. Tyagi, I think we touched major factors responsible for climate change, including internal factors and external factors as well. At this point, I distinctly remember Suchishmita Mukhopadhyay, who's Associate Director, Climate Change and Energy, WWF India.
Yes.
She had joined us, and she too had very valuable inputs.
What we've realized is that it's very important to reach out to multiple stakeholders. We can't just be talking to policymakers, or we can't just be talking within the circles of the think tanks about climate change and then, publishing something which is too scientific or too difficult to understand. This has to go out to different stakeholders. I'll take an example of some of the work that we do with the cities. So it's important for the local governments to also realize that they are also part of the problem and they are also part of the solution. So as the cities are growing, right now over 50% of the population is living in the cities. In India, we're at 31% of urbanization, and this is likely to go up to 40% by 2030 and much beyond by 2050. And as the cities continue to urbanize, as the population goes on increasing, there are issues of more energy consumption, there are issues of pollution, unmanaged waste, unsustainable use of natural resources. Basically, the entire quality of life and the sustainability of a city keeps going down. And therefore, it's important for the cities to also understand that it's not what they're doing within the city limits, but it's also what they're doing contributes to the national as well as the global climate change discourse. Like for example, if I talk about, there are two aspects to the climate change discussion. It is mitigation and adaptation. So adaptation is how do you sort of prepare yourselves to counter the impacts, and mitigation is what you really do to be part of the solution. And when I say impacts, is important for the cities to be working on transportation, better transportation, sustainable mobility. That is, you reduce the share of fossil fuels, reduce GHG emissions from private transport, move more towards non-motorized transportation, towards BRTs, towards better public transport, better waste management, enhance the share of renewable energy and energy efficiency within the city. And in doing all of this, the city can't be doing it alone. The citizens have a major role to play, because we ourselves have to bring about the behavior change, the lifestyle change. So I think we've always talked about the jugaad in India.
Yeah.
But if you look at it more formally, I think India is bubbling with innovation.
Yeah.
And there are several of these startups, smaller companies, SMEs, that have a lot of these innovations that are looking at really addressing climate change. They're looking at very innovative technologies that can enhance the uptake of renewable energy and that can sort of bring in energy efficiency more into the picture. And some of these solutions would be, cooling solutions, solar air conditioning solutions. There are demand-side management solutions. These are very innovative technologies that are applicable across bigger industries. They can work with the municipal corporations, they can work with residential areas. So some of these technologies really need to be promoted more. They need a lot of hand-holding, because these are very small companies that have an idea, but they don't have the finance, they don't have the manpower, they don't have the capacities to really build on it, and most importantly, they don't have the right business models, they don't have the right business development plans. So I think sort of promoting these innovations can really go a long way in providing the right kind of solutions to address climate change.
Moving on to segment 3, Dr. Tyagi. This, I recollect, was something connected with proof and flavor of climate change.
Yeah.
Points like temperature measurements and proxies, sea level change in vegetation and animal distribution were discussed.
Yeah.
in this paper.
Actually, the whole international community is divided into two parts. One is saying this climate change and global warming is a reality. The other one is saying no, it's a cyclic process.
I've heard this debate often.
Yeah. Yes. But here the scientific community, especially the environmentalists, they have proved it through a scientific method. And then the other thing was we are also experiencing the rising of the sea level. The glaciers are melting. And there are many islands, which has totally submerged into the water.
Hello, Uncle.
Wow, what a pleasant surprise. A very warm welcome to all of you.
Thank you, Uncle.
Please
Thank you
come in,
so much.
come in.
Thank you. It's really nice to visit your home. It's so beautiful.
Thank you. Please be seated.
Thank you.
By the way, Anandji, how was your program? Have you finished your work?
Oh, yes, it was a successful one indeed. It was about sea level rise and its effects.
Oh, is it a reality? Is there any evidences?
Of course, sir, it is a reality. Ice sheets and glaciers undergo climate-related melting when a glacier loses ice mass. Its gravitational attraction is reduced. Ocean water nearby move away, causing sea level to rise faster far away from the glaciers. The resulting pattern of sea level change is known as sea level fingerprint.
Papa, is there any uniformity in sea level rise throughout the globe?
Neha, sea level rise in California and Florida generated by the melting of the Antarctic ice sheet is up to 52% greater than its average effect on the rest of the world.
Oh, really?
The sea level will not rise uniformly everywhere on Earth, and it will even drop in some locations.
Anand sir, how do geologists react to this? What is their opinion on sea level rise?
Ranjanji, marine terraces and buried wetlands are only two of many types of geological evidences for earlier sea levels. Geologists also study foraminifera and diatoms for evidence of ice age and sea level change. These fossils can be used as indicators of past climate as different species performed living in different water temperature.
Interesting, Papa.
Really interesting.
Please share more information.
Naveen, many marine organisms including foraminifera have hard shells made of calcium carbonate.
Okay.
the composition of oxygen isotopes found in the shell can be measured to determine what the water temperature was like when the organism was formed.
Okay.
We invited in our studio Dr. Sachinanand Satpathy.
He's
Yes.
former director of climate change division in the Ministry of Environment, Forests and Climate Change.
Yes. So he also gave us the additional information, additional input in terms of what our government is planning or what has been already done or what has been the adaptive or mitigative measures which we have taken. He discussed about all those things. Yeah.
As on today, if we just go back to the history and just think about the present scenario, at international level, last year, Conference of Party just discussed about the rules and procedures to be adopted for implementation of Paris Agreement. Paris Agreement in 2015, it was a landmark decision at global level to reduce the GHG emission at both developed and developing countries, and take appropriate actions, adaptation actions to reduce the vulnerability of climate change. And in addition to that, there are several articles to support these two things, like capacity building, then finance, and all these things were there. Presently, you know that USA is taking back foot and they are not ready to accept the principles or the decisions of Paris Agreement.
Very true.
But recently in newspaper it has come also, US President is listening his scientists or something. There are some good news, some mixed news, not bad. What will happen after 2020 we don't know. But as per the provision, it takes 4 years to withdraw from a convention or any international treaty. But keeping aside USA, all other countries are united to take action or to initiate action at global level, at national level, and at subnational level also to reduce the greenhouse gas emission, at the same time to enhance the ambitions of adaptive actions. And India is proactively working in that line. See, recently our DG IMD addressed the same issue in the context of India, that heavy rainfall or no rainfall, this is cyclic phenomena. Last 100 years, there is no deficiency of rain, but deficiency of monsoon rain was there. Similarly, what science is giving evidence that temperature is increasing at global level. The average temperature is increasing. But what your question that in western countries, cities, the temperature is rising. And there are cyclones are there. These are definitely one way because of climate change. But at the same time, climate change doesn't own these things directly. There is no substantial evidence that these are due to climate change. Weather variability is also there. So there is some gap in understanding or to establish linkage. It will take little more time to establish that exact temperature rise or heavy rain or no rain is due to climate change. Like climate change is a long-term phenomenon and weather is a short-term phenomenon. We can consider under weather and think, considering the climate change, it might be or it is likely to be.
The major concern was like the global warming and the food security. Because this is considered to be now fundamental right. But if the productivity reduce, what will happen?
True.
So now here is the question of we have to now do the research in an area which is because the climate cycle is changing. So then we have to come with a new variety of food crops which are either early maturing variety
or resistant.
Yeah, so that they can reconcile with this change climatic clock. So all these issues were considered in this episode, and also the interesting part was some beneficial impact. It's strange because we heard so many bad things about climate change.
We always
and global
discuss
warming.
harmful impacts.
Yes, but it has been proved scientifically that in certain crops, the productivity will increase if the level of CO2 will rise.
Mr. Sehgal, feel at home.
Yes.
Be comfortable.
Yes. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Uncle, you were talking about the positive impacts of climate change.
Yes, I was.
Uncle, we want to know more about it.
Akash, that is why I am here. And you know, your papa was telling about the international seminar on climate change.
Yes, Mr. Sehgal. But you know, it was difficult to believe. But they have backed this research with some data. Through a model on climate change, it has been assumed that there will be an increase in crop production due to climate change.
So, what are you saying? Papa, we heard that climate change can harm the crops.
Yes, Akash. Some experts presented facts that in general, insects infection aggravated with rise in temperature, and some crops diseases caused more harm due to climate change. But they were of the opinion under some circumstances their effects can be neutralized.
But Papa, our teacher had told us that change in climate is very harmful to food crops.
Here, Akash. You know, there are some facts to be known and understood properly. See, global warming is a natural phenomenon that causes and brings change in the climate. So, there's a simple funda to understand and know that climate change brings some positive impacts also.
You're right, Bhabiji. Due to global warming, temperature will rise and it causes excess of water evaporation and vaporization. This humid air moves towards hot and dry land and causes heavy rain. Amazon forests are a very good example for the same.
Greenery in desert. Wow, that's very interesting.
The impossible becomes possible due to global warming. Wow!
Now look at the average rise of 2 degree temperature. How the Europe will be benefited by that. Now they will be in a position to grow certain crop. But if we put them into a balance, harmful and beneficial impact, the harmful impact is still very, very high, that component, as compared to the benefit which it is offering. So this case, I think we have in our studio Dr. T.S. Panwar. He was Director Climate Change and Energy Program of at WWF.
It is true that both these phenomena reinforce each other. For example, if we have higher temperatures, it would lead to greater melting of glaciers.
Yes.
And that is one direct thing because of which the sea level rise is there. Second aspect is the more the temperature, the greater would be the volume of the water, and because of that there would be a rise in the level of the sea water. So both of them...
double jeopardy.
Yes. And actually it adds up, and that is where there's also a recent report by the UN on the impacts of climate change related to cryosphere. And that also is pointing out to more and more coastal cities which are there being vulnerable, and I think at the level of 50 centimeter rise, many of our big cities like Mumbai, Chennai, Kolkata, they would be severely impacted by the impacts of sea level rise. So this is a very challenging sort of issue which is there, and that is why the efforts are there not only by the government of India, but it is a global issue. So this report deals with the impacts till the end of the century, that is 2100. But there are also interim scenarios which deal with the year 2050, and the levels are different obviously at different points in time. But it is pointing out that currently, if you see, all the countries under the Paris Agreement had agreed that they would take measures to limit the temperature increase to well within 2 degrees centigrade, but make efforts towards limiting it to 1.5 degrees centigrade. But just on one point on this is that we already have exceeded 1 degree centigrade, and the current trends indicate that by 2100 year we are headed towards a almost 3 degrees rise in temperature. So CO2 is not considered as an air pollutant by definition.
Yes.
Because air pollution is more of a local phenomena in which we take pollutants such as PM particulate matter, PM 2.5, PM 10. I'm sure you all would have heard. It is solid as well as gaseous particles. For example, oxides of nitrogen, sulfur dioxide, and there are other harmful pollutants, for example, benzene, toluene, pH, others are there, and ozone also. So there is also a close relationship between air pollution and climate change.
There was one segment which touched upon a major initiative to reduce the impact of climate change.
Yes, in this segment, we try to put a very holistic situation that is not question of yours and mine. It's a question of humanity as a whole. So what stand we should take?
So more or less we've covered all the important points in the last 50 episodes of Whispers of the Wind.
No, there was one more important segment into that, because when we take India, the last segment was a very focused one on India scenario. Like we discussed about the energy scenario, the sustainable development goal, and the adaptation to climate change in India, mitigation and climate change through forest. Then attending the affected community, what India has done so far in mitigating and adaptation of the climate change.
Fine. Coming to the sunset point of this episode, we say goodbye to our listeners. Thank you, Dr. Tech.
Thank you, Manoj.
Whispers of the Wind. You are listening to the episode number 51 of this science serial produced by All India Radio in collaboration with Vigyan-Prasar. Recap of all episodes. Participants expert were Dr. Nakul Parashar, Director Vigyan-Prasar, Dr. Birinder Kumar Tyagi, Senior Scientist and Coordinator of the Science Serial. Manoj Mayankar was the moderator of this program. Hey listeners, please stay with us. You can send your suggestions by simple post. Our address is Science Serial, Whispers of the Wind, Director Vigyan-Prasar, A50 Institutional Area, Sector 62, Noida 201309. You can also write on our email ID radio@vigyanprasar.gov.in. If associated with Science Club, do let us know the membership of your club. If you have any query or question, do not hesitate to write to us. We will be back again with the next science serial, Whispers of the Wind, same day, same time, next week. Till then, goodbye.